So Johann Most is a German radical anarchist that actually came to America, influenced Emma Goldman. He was, I don't know when he came over here, but he was born, I think, in 1846, and then died in 1906 in Cincinnati. So he was born in Germany. I think he was in a prison in Saxon, but he was born in Germany in the 40s, and then eventually comes over here. So he's not 48er, so he was only here for a couple decades and really made a mark. Some background. Johann Most was born 1846, died in 1906. He's a product of a broken family and the victim of a disfiguring operation that left his face permanently scarred. German-born Johann Most was a lonely child who regarded the world as a vast conspiracy of cruelty and oppression. He would grow up to become an anarchist firebrand and influential figure whose beliefs were often misrepresented. True sympathy. In one of the few fondly remembered experiences from Johann Most's young adulthood, he encountered a group of socialist working men who showed him the first true sympathy and friendship he had ever known. He embraced their doctrine like a zealot and subsequently spent nearly 7 years in European prisons for his socialist agitation before immigrating to America in 1882. So there it is. He gets to America in 1882, which would be 13 years after my German ancestors got here, so they probably would have known who Johann Most is, and he is a firebrand, right? So you're going to have a lot of workers unrest, right? During the industrial age, you're going to have the Homestead strike, you're going to have the Haymarket Affair, 1900s, the Triangle Shirtwaist Factory. You have child labor, you have people working like 20-hour days. So this is a really bad time for labor. And it was a violent repression by the capitalists, by the industrialists, by Carnegie, J.P. Morgan, and company. So those fuckers, no matter how much money they donate to charity, they were killing fucking working class people that was working for them in their own fucking places, gunning them down like dogs because they wanted, benefits. They wanted to stop the little babies from working in the fucking coal mines. They wanted 8-hour days, right? They didn't want to work for 20 hours, just 8 hours, right? It's pretty much your entire life, Once you put 8 hours into work, you only have 8 hours for leisure and then 8 hours for sleep. What else you got? So you have true sympathy in one of the few fondly remembered experiences from Johann Most, young adulthood. Johann Gripshover was the one who come over to America too. So Johann Most, Johann Gripshover. I'm just saying. Not the same guy. Or is it? No, he come over 13 years later. He encountered a group of socialist working men who showed him the first true sympathy and friendship he had ever known. He embraced their doctrine like a zealot, subsequently spent nearly 7 years in European prisons for socialist agitation before immigrating to America in 1882. He's a bewitching speaker. So the Johann Most's ability to give a voice to written rhetoric was astounding. So Johann Most, he could, he was eloquent, he could give a speech. He became one of the greatest revolutionary speakers of his time. It's an understatement recalled a Jewish comrade to say that Johann Most had the ability to inspire an audience. He electrified and all but bewitched every listener, opponent, as well as friend. No wonder the press hated him, and Voltairine de Clevere, after attending one of his lectures for his eloquence, is so great that even German policemen against whom he thunders his antithemas applaud him, using their clubs to pat the wall behind him as not to be seen. So even the police love him, okay? They go to his lectures and love what he's got to say. So they like his ideas. There's some quotes here. What he was saying. So there's some quotes as sort of as anarchism desirable. Well, who does not seek freedom? What man, unless willing to declare himself in bondage, would care to call any control agreeable? Think about it. Think about it. What man out here would say, yes, it is okay that I will be a slave to another person? What human out here, what person out here would say agree to slavery of another person? Unless they were trained that way, there's no way anybody would come to that rational conclusion by their own, free will. No way. No way. They would have free will to think about it, then go back in bondage and quit thinking. Maybe, I don't know. Red pill, blue pill, right? Steak seems like it tastes delicious, so fuck it. Anarchists are socialists because they want the improvement of society, and they are communists because they're convinced that such a transformation of society can only result from the establishment of a commonwealth of property. Commonwealth of property. Kentucky is a commonwealth. There's common poverty everywhere. It should be commonwealth. We should nationalize the coals and nationalize the land and legalize marijuana. Those are $3 trillion ideas. Nationalize coal. You're for coal? You're in favor of coal? Good. Let's get the coal straight to the people. People need the coal. People, there's a lot of poor people out here. They don't need to pay for electricity. We got all the coal in the world. It's free. Now, for all poor people who need electricity in Kentucky, absolutely free. With the other profits that we make from the coal from anybody else that we're selling it to, we are going to invest in solar power and every other type of power thing that we can get. Put big-ass windmills on top of these mountains instead of decapitating, or putting them on top of decapitated mountains. It doesn't matter. Windmills, they take up like no space whatsoever. Solar power. There should be solar in Germany. They got solar power panels everywhere. There should be solar power panels everywhere here too. It was ridiculous. Ronald Reagan, fuck Ronald Reagan. Ronald Reagan's a dickhead, and the fact that that's where the Tea Party and libertarians are getting their fucking gusto from just because he said something about government's the problem. Ronald Reagan's an asshole. He's a fucking schizophrenic fucking losing his mind. He was just an actor, right? He just had a few like big general ideas. And no, he didn't end communism. He didn't end Russia or the USSR. They collapsed on their own. So, he was opposed to that, but naturally, just real politic. They're a different country, right? So automatically, we're vying for limited resources. So, as set forth by theologians, the idea of God is an argument that assumes its own conclusions and proves nothing. As set forth by the theologians, the idea of God is an argument that assumes its own conclusions. It's circular reasoning. God says that God is real, so therefore I have faith in God. Why would God lie? I mean, God wouldn't lie if God wasn't real. Why would God say he was? It doesn't make any sense. Get out of here with your atheist talk. The God of the Christians, as we have seen, is the God who makes promises only to break them, who sends them pestilence and disease in order to heal them, a God who demoralizes mankind in order to improve it. Whoever looks at America will see the ship is powered by stupidity, corruption, or prejudice. Johann Most. God, as revealed in his book of edicts and narratives, is practically an idiot. He has nothing to say that any sensible person should want to listen to. Fortunately, no country was ever more suited for anarchist agitation than present-day America. If we hope and even assume that the social question will be answered through communism, and not in this or that country, but in the world, any thought of centralization must be a monstrosity. As the lash of hunger, which compels the poor man to submit. In order to live, he must voluntarily sell himself every day, an hour, to the beast of property, to the owners of society. So it is hunger. They're poor. They need to eat. So you have to become a slave in order to eat. That's capitalism. He who negates present society and seeks social conditions based on the sharing of property is a revolutionary, whether he calls himself an anarchist or a communist. Land, free soil. Was anarchism possible? The failure of attempts to attain freedom does not mean that the cause is lost. Somebody said something about France. They have attempted freedom several times and have failed several times, but even though they fell, they get up more glorious and more beautiful. So, through trial and experimentation, eventually people can get it right. Above all, what socialist without flushing with shame maintains he is not a revolutionary? We say none. They make revolutionary propaganda because they know the privileged class can never be overturned peacefully. We need do no more than repeat, only under communism does the individual become himself and lead his own life. See, I have a mixture of beliefs. So I feel like, no, I don't want collectives. No, not one big farm. We're all not living on one big piece of ground, but everybody has their own piece of ground. Get everybody a piece of ground, and I think you'll see an entire Kentucky in 20 years. You'll see an entire entire different type of Kentucky in 20 years. Easily. Give everybody a piece of ground, just like the Homestead Act. You got this piece of ground for 5 years, you take care of it, and, you know, if you can make it profitable and you can make it work, then you keep it. But if you don't, then you're out, you know. So having them pay the cheapest basis and use land that's not being used. So there's a lot of land around here, so whatever land is not being used, you know, if there is land, then they could always, a sharecropper, somebody could always be, you know, there could always be something that should serve a social purpose. Having idle lands, what good does idle lands do for anybody? The aims of anarchists and true communists are identical. Anarchists prepare for social revolution and use every means, speech, writing, or deed, whichever is more to the point, to accelerate revolutionary development. If on the one side we do not harbor the illusion that the entire proletariat must be enlightened before it can be called into battle, so on the other side we do not doubt that as much enlightenment as possible must be produced with oral and printed agitation. The anarchists on behalf of the proletariat therefore consider it necessary to show the proletariat that it will have to win a gigantic battle before it realizes its goals. The existing system will be the quickest and most radically overthrown by the annihilation of its exponents. Therefore, massacres of the enemies of the people must be set in motion. While we have entertained the contention that a deed may make more propaganda than hundreds of speeches, thousands of articles, and tens of thousands of pamphlets, we have held that an arbitrary act of violence will not necessarily have such an effect. Okay, so that's Johann Most. It goes with the most. Supposedly it was the Germans and the Bohemians who were the agitators for the Haymarket Affair, where we get May Day. May 4th comes from the Haymarket Affair, which was in Chicago, Illinois. Tuesday, May 4th, 1886, began as a peaceful rally in support of workers striking for an 8-hour workday. We only want 8 hours, that's it. And in reaction to the killing of several workers by the police the previous day. So the police had murdered 6 people. Now they're protesting. Unknown person threw a dynamite bomb at the police as they acted to disperse the public meeting. All right, everybody get out of here. Throws the bomb. They blow up. Then you have 7 dead police officers, 4 dead civilians, and lots of wounded people. In the international publicized legal proceedings that followed, 8 anarchists were convicted of conspiracy. This is conspiracy theory. 8 anarchists were convicted of just an anarchist, right? Just a person who doesn't want centralized authority. That's all an anarchist is. The evidence was that one of the defendants may have built the bomb, but none of those on trial had thrown it. 7 were sentenced to death and 1 to a term of 15 years in prison. The death sentences of 2 of the defendants were commuted by Illinois Governor Richard J. Oglesby to terms of life in prison. Another committed suicide in jail rather than face the gallows. The other 4 were hanged on November 11, 1887. In 1893, Illinois' new governor, John Peter Altgeld, pardoned the remaining defendants and criticized the trial. Seven were sentenced to death, 1 to a term of 15 years in prison. The death sentences were commuted. 4 fucking were killed. 4 fucking people were fucking killed because of the Haymarket Affair. So basically the state wanted blood and they just fucking picked radical people who spoke up against for their cause. They necessarily hadn't done anything. They said one of the defendants may have built the bomb, but none of them definitely had thrown them. There's like 4 fucking, you know, sources, right? Wikipedia has like 4 like, you know, source references. So they have, none of them had thrown the bomb, but one of the defendants may have built the bomb. Where, you know, how the fuck, whatever. If he built the bomb, he's pretty close to it. So maybe that person, but that means 7 of the 8 had nothing to do with it. 1 person may have had something to do with it, but 7 of them had nothing to do with it. And they killed 4 of them. They killed 4 fucking people over this. Like, this is the defendants. I'm gonna read their names just because, you know. August Spy, Samuel Fieldin, Albert Parsons, Adolf Fischer, Michael Schwab, Louis Ling, George Engel, Oscar Neebe. I don't know. William Siegliger. Okay, I don't know who I'm actually saying. I'm just looking at the highlighted names.